Hi guys, today we're going to discuss how to debunk climate deniers and climate alarmists. What a combination. Isn't one only supposed to debunk the other? We are actually going to debunk all of them together. The reason is because most climate deniers aren't actually denying or debunking the correct thing. So let's just take a look here for a second at an interesting quote for framing. Here we are from Noam Chomsky. The smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but allow very lively debate within that spectrum. So this is what myself and the group of scientists I worked with years ago on this, and still do a little bit, found is that people were just debating all sorts of endless minutiae in this climate alarm, climate debate, climate skeptic whole phenomenon on the internet. People were just discussing endless minutia. Is warming going to be 1.4 degrees or is it going to be 1.5 degrees? Does the Vostok ice core record show correlation or does it show causation? And if it shows one or the other, is it actually important, and does CO2 still cause warming or not cause warming, whether or not the ice core records showed correlation or causation? Endless things like that. Is there positive feedback or is there negative feedback? Just endless debate on what I call the minutia, the details, the fine details. So one thing that's a rational thing to do, and this kind of connects back to my one of my earlier vids about critical thinking climate alarm, how critical thinking actually works. So if you find that there's just impasse after impasse, all this minutia is being debated and it never leads anywhere. It's just the liveliest debate that never goes anywhere and is never resolved, and no one ever agrees on anything. What do you do at that point? Well, the rational critical thinking thing to do is to take a step back. Take a step back, look at the foundations of everything. Look at the foundations of the paradigm within which everybody is debating. So I did that, and there was a few other people, a good few other people, many other people, I should say, scientists who had qualifications just like I did, who were doing that and doing this. And this was about, I don't know, what was this, 8 to 10 years ago about. So these people, yeah, maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, yeah. So these people, we started calling ourselves the Slayers. I don't know who came up with that name, but we just called ourselves the Slayers, the greenhouse sky dragon greenhouse theory Slayers, because what we did, like any critical thinker should do, is we were the only ones, and we never even knew who each other were for the most part. We were only internet acquaintances that met each other on messaging comment forums, right? And we started to like each other because we're the only ones saying the same things, and so we started talking, offline or via email instead of on comment sections. We started talking via email and sharing our emails around. And so we formed a group just this way. We never knew what each other looked like even, or where even most of us were from, but we just started talking about this issue. So we started the place to go, where you go when you do this procedure, you take a step back and you look at the foundations. What are the foundations then of climate alarm? What is the paradigm within which all this endless minutia that never gets resolved, what is it based in? And so what it is based in is this. It's all based within this paradigm of the climate alarmist greenhouse effect. All of it, all of climate alarm and even all of climate science, even all of the debate, all of the skepticism occurs within this paradigm of the climate science greenhouse effect. And as we've seen this slide before, this is Foundation of Climate Physics. Here's many diagrams from many different references, and they all show the same thing, right? So this is the foundation of climate physics. Now, to make the point here, this is from, and it's just, he's just said some wonderful things, so this is why I keep bringing him up. He's just a good reference. I'm not obsessed with this guy or anything. But Roy Spencer is a climatologist, and he's a skeptic climatologist. So he says right here, I've shared this whole quote before, but just this end part is the most important. He says, this is as basic as it gets. This is the starting point for all of climate science. This is a climatologist saying this, and this is a skeptic saying this. Obviously, the alarmists would say this too, since alarmism is based on the greenhouse effect. But this is what a skeptic climatologist is saying, that this is the starting point for all of climate science, and no credentialed skeptic, let alone alarmist, that he knows would dispute it. So there you go. This is the starting point. And what is the starting point? What does it reduce to? This starting point is equivalent to flat earth theory. They draw those diagrams as flat lines because it is mathematically equivalent to being flat earth. That's why. It's not that they're flat earth theorists and said, oh, we're going to make flat earth theory. It's that they're really bad scientists. They're really dumb. And they perform this mathematics where they spread sunshine over the entire surface area of the earth at once. And when you do that, you create a structure which is equivalent to flat earth theory. And that's why you can then draw it as flat lines, as they do in their diagrams, which you can reference all over the place at all of their institutions. So this is the basis of climate physics, and you have heard it from a climatologist themselves that this is the basis, the starting point of climate theory in regular standard climate science, and he's not aware of anyone that disputes it. Can you imagine that, people? They spread sunshine, incoming sunshine, over the entire surface area of the earth at once, getting rid of day and night in a mathematical procedure that is equivalent to creating flat earth theory, where sunshine has been reduced because it's been diluted over the entire surface area of the earth at once. Sunshine has been reduced to a heating potential, a heating power of only minus 18 degrees Celsius, so that the sun cannot even create the climate. And because the sun cannot create the climate with their mathematical position, their mathematical starting point, they then invent a scheme where the climate creates itself out of nothing. And they call that the greenhouse effect, even though it's not actually how a real greenhouse functions. In fact, it's the opposite of how a real greenhouse functions. And real greenhouses could function like this, but they don't, thus giving you empirical proof that this scheme doesn't exist and does not actually function, because it should function in real greenhouses but doesn't. It doesn't function in the real atmosphere either, because it was an invention of making sunshine too feeble to create the climate. So they invented this scheme where the climate creates itself, and they call that the greenhouse effect, and it's a fake greenhouse effect. It's mathematically, physically, theoretically, and graphically equivalent to flat earth theory. Output is reversed for input, all that, and it's, as I said, refuted by real greenhouses. So that's their starting point. So how do you want to debunk? Do you want to debunk climate deniers? You can debunk climate deniers like I'm talking about the mainstream climate deniers, the ones who are approved, right? The ones who get airtime, the ones who have the big websites and the big funding and the big advertisers and all that, the ones you get to hear about, the ones that even get on the news and stuff like that. Oh yes, you're allowed to hear from them. But you know what, the slayers, you know what people like me actually found? It was the strangest thing. It was those big name skeptic websites and skeptic people. They were the ones, most of all, equally equivalent to the alarmists, who would not allow the debate to go to questioning whether this greenhouse theory, this basis, this starting point of their science is actually valid. The climate deniers, the well-known climate deniers with the big websites, with the big traffic, who have the big names out there, who everyone knows, they, most of all, we slayers started calling them gatekeepers, because we were like, why are you guys not allowing the debate go to something that is so obvious and so easy to go to? You want to argue about all this minutia, 1.1 degrees warming versus 1.2 degrees warming. I mean, they just argued that for years, endlessly. But then they wouldn't let us go to here and say, guys, do you really want to think about, if you want to debate and debunk and be skeptical of climate alarm, Why not go to its basis then? Look, its basis is based on these diagrams. And look, they're literally written as flat earths. They're literally written as flat lines, drawn as flat lines and flat earths, because that's actually what the mathematics is actually doing. That's why it's drawn that way. That's what that mathematics is. That mathematics is spreading incoming sunlight over the entire surface area of the earth at once. That doesn't happen. That's not meaningful. And when you do that mathematically, you dilute sunshine. To evaluate that, it can't create the climate. I mean, guys, this is an obvious place to go. This is an obvious place for skepticism to go. It's a really safe place. You're not going to get attacked from this. The only people who are going to attack you are flat earth theorists, right? But they wouldn't let us go there, and they did their best to drown us out and to kick us out of the whole online community thing, the whole online movement thing of climate skepticism. They did their best to keep us away from it and get us out and get us ridiculed for various reasons. You know, attack the messenger, not the message, all that sort of stuff, right? All sorts of disgusting tactics used, mostly, interestingly, by the skeptics. It was almost as if the alarmists just said, here, you skeptics handle these slayer people that are going where they're not allowed to go. You handle them. And so we were shut down by the skeptics, most of all, by the so-called mainstream deniers that everybody knows about. So this was an entirely safe and rational place to go. That's the safest position you can go as a skeptic, is to say, I'm pretty sure flat earth mathematics is wrong. I'm pretty sure it's wrong to spread sunshine over the entire surface area of the earth at once. I'm pretty sure that's wrong because that doesn't happen, right? But then you have a climatologist skeptic, let alone the alarmist. You have a skeptic saying, no, this is the starting point of climate science, and I don't know of any credentialed, reputable scientist, reputable climatologist who disputes that. It's just like, oh man, like people, this is a joke. We are dealing with some sort of a joke. We're dealing with something that's so ridiculous it shouldn't exist. We're dealing with something that is more a statement about humanity and online culture or something, or the scientific method, which is what I've actually wanted to say. It said this is an indication that there's a real big problem with the scientific method, that this is happening. Like this is joke, like this is deadpan comedy, but not like just like a little bit of deadpan where it's like, you know, one time I was playing pool, some guy came up to me and said, or me and my buddy, and goes, would you two homosexuals care to share a game of billiards? And it was pretty funny because he's, you know, calling us homosexuals to our face with a total deadpan look on his face. And it was hilarious. I burst out laughing. It was just like, that was really funny. It's like, you know, that's how guys work. You know, we challenge each other in those humorous ways. But anyway, this is like so deadpan. It's just like beyond funny. Anyway, maybe that doesn't make sense to you. It makes sense to me. Anyway, so yeah, if you want to debunk climate deniers, you can, the mainstream ones, you can debunk them the same way as you debunk the climate alarmists, and you point out that their whole paradigm within which they're debating all this endless minutia that goes nowhere, it's all based on this flat earth greenhouse effect. This flat earth climate model, this flat earth starting point that they admit is the starting point, where there's no day and night, where sunshine is spread over the entire surface area of the earth at once, where sunshine is too cold to create the climate. All right? So, hope that was a lot of fun, and how do you turn this thing off? Take care, bye.